Let's get straight into it, though, because Jamarra Ugle-Hagan, we're going to start with this. He is leave of absence today, which is code for what?
Well, it's code for the fact that everyone's now agreeing that Jamarra needs time away from football to focus on his health and well-being. The club, the player, the AFL and also his management have agreed with this, and his family. Now, there's conversations around the next steps that he's open to now that he never has been before, which I guess is a positive. Everyone around this situation does believe this allows fresh air and everyone to take a breath where football's not the priority. This is the statement from the Western Bulldogs today. The key there is a management plan has been developed with Jamarra. They're working together. The football side of this, Hurdy, is that Jamarra's future at the Western Bulldogs is now very much in jeopardy. There's every chance he doesn't play this year and every chance he doesn't play for the club again.
Well, it has been for quite a while. I think everyone recognises it's been at jeopardy for quite a while. But the average man on the street would be asking, what's different? I mean, he's been away from the club for such a long time, maybe trained once or twice. But if I was the average person or the media that's coming out, what's changed?
What's changed is that Jamarra wanted to play football and get back to training, and now that's taken out of his hands. And the only thing that matters,
he didn't want to because he wasn't going to training.
No, but he was still getting to training sometimes. In his mind, he still wanted to get back and play football in the near future.
How many times has he been at training in the last 3 months?
I don't know the 3 months, but the last few weeks, not many.
Right.
But I went to a press conference there 4 weeks ago, and he was there that day. This is now football completely taken out of his hands. It's completely off the table. It's all about his health.
Look, I know we have to be careful around anything to do with mental health. Okay, we all know that. Okay, but we also see all the social media. Is that code for saying, right, we've taken it away from the Western Bulldogs now, you have to go through a protocol to be able to get back to football, and then we end up, that's somewhere for down the track. And I suppose the follow-up question, which you probably haven't got the answer to because I don't, does that mean his pay stops?
No.
Or is it, so he's still going to be paid?
He's getting paid.
Full whack.
This is a medical issue, according to the Western Bulldogs, and it's not code, that is the case. Right. He has to tick off a lot of boxes before he even thinks about football.
But now we've got the boxes you've got to tick. Is that what we're saying, rather than hoping and wishing? And
yeah, there's no hoping, there's no wishing. There's no prospect of any football anytime soon.
Did they articulate what this actually is? What's the first box? Like, is it go to...
He has to accept the feedback and the medical prognosis that he's been given and then go from there.
Public sentiment is always on the side of the player, in favour of the player to a certain point. I would say at this point it's not. Public sentiment has gone the other way. Hopefully he can get the work done he needs to get back.
Well, this feels like a bit of a line in the sand type of moment, and there's been so much commentary around this from all of us really the last 8 weeks. Is this put to bed now? Like, are you going to touch on this, you reckon, in the coming weeks, or is this done for?
No, as long as he's away from the club for these reasons, there's no more story to be told. Football was a distraction to him, and he was a distraction to the Western Bulldogs. That's why the decision's been made.
There's going to be one reason it comes up, is if we see social media with him carrying on.
Well, that's exactly right. It's up to him now.
That's it. All right, move on. Coaches' salaries. Now, people at home are going, why do we care? Okay? But I think that this is an investment in the future of the game. I think the AFL have got it wrong in not repairing the soft cap to where it needed to be. Where some coaches, well, you could argue might have been too many, whatever the case. But at the moment, there is absolutely a mistake because we're seeing candidates who would become coaches going forward, who would be great coaches, great communicators, great ambassadors for football, are not going near it. They're going to come here.
Eddie, there's an avalanche of disharmony among football department staff that's been festering for now the best part of 2 to 3 years. And the AFL, for the first time in the last few months, has started to listen. And this all started when Chris Fagan presented to the Commission and made his point that the assistant coaches and the football department staff aren't paid enough. And then Laura Kane, in the gather round press conference she did, said this, which further articulated the fact that the league is now listening.
I don't want them to feel like we as a code, we as a football department don't value what they do. I've worked with Brad and seen up close how passionate, how amazing he is as a contributor to our game, and we want to make sure, and my team will work really hard to make sure that perception changes. And if it's a reality, it's one I don't want. I don't want anyone to feel like that.
So that was music to the ears of the coaches, but there still needs to be solutions that are put in place. And there's so many different considerations being put forward, Ed. One of them is that the entire senior coach salary will be outside the soft cap. Currently it's 20%. One of the considerations is the entire senior coach salary will be outside the soft cap, which of course would free up more money for assistant coaches and other footy department staff.
Stay the same.
The soft cap would still rise as it is.
But that frees, let's say North Melbourne, for example, they'll have a lot more space in the cap than, let's say, a Collingwood, for example, who's, I don't know what the difference is, but Clark's being paid the most. Is that fair?
Well, the soft cap is only a soft cap, it's not a hard cap. Clubs can pay more than what the soft cap currently dictates.
Yep.
So that doesn't change that. I mean, what you're seeing at the moment is coaches being paid less than what they were in 2020.
I've seen firsthand the way the assistant coaches, the work they do, the time they put in, and the way what they get paid, and it's not enough. And I think it's good on the AFL for changing, but it has to change straight away.
And development coaches too. They put in very similar hours to what an assistant coach does, but get a significant amount less. I'm all for it. But I think there needs to be a cap on the amount of staff you can employ as well. Because I have seen footy clubs be overstaffed at times where people do the same roles and then that impacts what someone gets paid.
Have a cap, that's it. Don't worry about taking things in and out. Just make it simple. The AFL are world champions at making something simple really unintelligible. And we're going to get to that in a moment in the back with Paul Curtis. Just have a salary cap. That's why you have a CEO. Decide what you're going to do. I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars, you're going to get Y and you're going to get Z, okay? Now, if you want a pay rise, okay, well, we're going to have to work it out how we do that. If we really like you, we're going to actually pay the soft cap fine at the end. But that's up for clubs. That's what you're there for. You've got to compete. You've got to cajole. You've got to work it out.
Development of players is still the most important part of a football club. Yep. The senior coaches are really important and the most important, but if you don't develop your young players, you're in trouble. And
already we're seeing coaches and deals and things come into play. And straight away, as soon as you know the rort's in, it's
What do you mean by deals?
Side deals with club sponsors. We saw
third-party deals.
Geelong was investigated for Chris Scott with Morris finances and things.
Some of that's in a soft cap.
But it doesn't matter. It shouldn't. He should be able to make as much money as he can, you know. But at the same time, we have to make sure that it's not seen or otherwise. Every time the AFL brings in another clause, there's 3 other sub-clauses or ways around it. Make it as simple as possible.
So these conversations are happening behind the scenes at the AFL, and there's a number of different considerations, including coaches being paid more for marketing, promotional, a retirement and transition fund that would help coaches who step out of the game, bonuses, termination clause consistency, which there isn't at the moment, improved professional support for all long-term assistant coaches, and this one, more time off in the off-season. There is so much disharmony the AFL is now aware of and they're trying to fix.
Yeah, well, we'll fix that by pushing the season back. Right, so we'll get there. But I'll tell you, these are the answers. Tick. So instead of coming back before Christmas, you stay there until New Year's, right? So there's your good break. Pay them properly, invest your money, look after yourself. Yep. We don't have to nurse people to the grave in this situation.
Well, look after
it's
the game.
It's getting out of control.
It's looking after the game, in a sense.
Look after the game, look after the players in it, do the best we possibly can, but you can't legislate for that. That's what clubs are there for.
Ed, I'm completely with you.
AFL, no one barracks for them, right? And they can't run the clubs.
Yep.
Because the ones they do, they don't usually run that well.
No, that's true, and the proof's in the pudding with that.
Thank you very much for the underlining it. I know. Yeah. Right, Paul Curtis. So let's go to another one, okay?
Yes.
It's not an AFL bashing tonight, but this is another one where they've just extrapolated, and we've ended up with a disaster. 3 weeks for a tackle.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
A dangerous tackle that knocked Josh Sin out.
Tackle.
So tonight the AFL argued it was dangerous because Curtis pinned Sin's arms because he didn't prevent Sin's head from hitting the ground. The North Melbourne Football Club said it was like Dangerfield on Walsh last year, which eventually got overturned. In the end, the tribunal didn't agree.
So let me just read these out.
Yep.
So Curtis did not need to propel Shin forward with such force. Well, he tackled him, right? Curtis pinned both of Sin's arms, made no attempt to release either arm. Curtis made no or insufficient attempt to roll Sin, even though he landed on his side, to avoid or minimise the risks of Sin's head hitting the ground with force. Curtis made no or insufficient attempt to pull Sin back. OK, now, Curtis was supposed to do that. Now, I'm going to roll this in a second. You'll see black, and then you'll see in real time the amount of time Paul Curtis had to do all that, according to Jeff Gleeson, KC at the tribunal tonight. Go.
It's a lot to think about in that short space of time.
I played it 4 times.
Are we asking too much of players, Slaney?
That is less than 1/3 of a second from when Curtis tackled him till they got to the ground where he was supposed to have rolled, pulled himself back, not propelled, and let go of an arm.
To think about all that during a tackle and during a game is impossible. You won't get any arguments from a player saying that's ridiculous that that's 3 weeks. Yeah. When we saw it firsthand with Luke Parker, didn't we? He was obviously displeased and had a little jab, I think, over Instagram, if we've got that edit.
Better than a little jab. Have a look at this.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Please attend our touch football game this Thursday night versus Essendon. No more tackling.
I am waiting for the day where it's got to be the AFLPA or players or clubs get together and just go to the AFL. We just go, look, we respect that you want to look after people's heads and we don't want concussions in our game, but we can't accept this anymore. This is too much for our players to think about in that short space that you just showed us.
So what do you do?
They can't do that, Rory, because it's all about the concussions, it's all about the defamation, it's all about the legal cases going forward. It will get to the point, I think, except for one caveat, that if you concuss a player through your actions, you're out for 3 weeks, no matter what, except the spectacular high market. Other than that, they've done specky. I reckon I'll take it.
They're moving that out, Hootie, by allowing people to push in the back. You don't see people going for marks these days.
I'd be sad to see that out, but I think they've basically moved to the point, if a player gets concussed because of your actions, there's 3 weeks, which... I don't know, if that's where they're going, just tell everyone that's where they're going. Just make it a point, that's where we're going.
So let me
is there a clause?
Hang on, just before... We are all against concussion.
Yep,
we
totally.
want to make it as safe as possible. Jumper punching, I pushed home when I was on the commission, on the rules committee, that's a punch. You throw any punch, you get rubbed out.
Yep.
Okay, so get rid of punches. But incidental contact or contact that's in the game itself. Now, I don't think that was overboard as a tackle.
Totally not.
The sling tackle, yep, no problem whatsoever.
Yep.
But if you're coaching, how do you coach the tackle? If a player's running away from you and you run them down, which is one of the greatest spectacles in our game.
Well, you could ask him to just grab onto his jumper and pull him back, but that's just physically impossible to do.
In that case, you would have handballed it to Lord Francis.
That's right. I mean, that's exactly what you coach your player to do, is go and tackle him like that, and I just think it's ridiculous. But, as I said, they're going to make sure there is no concussions in the game or count them out so they don't get sued later on.
So we usually defer to the NFL, and there is a deal done between the AFL, National Football League, with the gridiron coming to Melbourne next year. I'll just show you some real-time stuff. This is the concussion safety that happens in the NCAA, so the college football in America. You know, my son plays at Ohio State as a punter, so doesn't get too much action with a concussion, but this is what happens. So you've got a 3 or 4 page document here saying this is what you do. This is what you do as a teammate. You've got to look out for your teammate, see if he's dazed, report it to the coach, report it to the doctor. If the doctor tells you that, mate, you've got to go to bed at 7:30, no going to the nightclub, no drinking, and by the way, and I'll come back to this in a second, but just, can you whack that up again, Jack? I'll just take you through it. And it says here, this is the disclaimer. I'm aware that participation in intercollegiate athletics involves a risk of personal injury, may result in a head injury or concussion. I understand that if I have previously suffered a concussion, I may be at increased risk. On it goes. I understand if the university believes in its reasonable judgment that I may have sustained concussion or symptoms, they may require evaluation to ensure my safety.
That wouldn't happen. That doesn't happen here, because the AFL Players Association would not let a player sign that.
So what I think we need to have is everything lined up. We need to, instead of doing it piecemeal, no fault compensation for players who have had sustained concussions that we can show were bona fide. We need to have proper protocols, including drug testing, right? Because you can't get knocked in the head and then fill your nose full of cocaine on the weekend and turn up to training and do all that sort of stuff.
And alcohol.
So the drug code's got to be fitting them. Stringent monitoring at rehab and during the game. Full knowledge of contact, that it's a contact invasion sport and that you are putting yourself into some harm's way. Serious penalties if you engage punching, sling tackling, all that sort of stuff in football incidents. And that gets us to about as good as it can get.
And I will say, if a player gets concussed and that is detrimental to the rest of their life, they should be able to be looked after by the competition that they're in. So I think all that is correct.
No
so your
fault
first
compensation.
Point, no fault compensation is still important, because if that ruins your life by participating, you should be looked after.
And there's going to be incidents that happen that no one wants to happen that happen.
Yeah, that's part of being a contact sport.
And the news tonight is that North Melbourne is considering appealing the Paul Curtis 3-week suspension. We'll know more in the next 12 to 24 hours.
What will that cost them?
$5,000 if they're
Might as well
unsuccessful.
just throw it away.
They've got to argue that there's an error of law or that it's so unreasonable that it's or manifestly excessive or inadequate.
What would you have done? What would you have done as President of Collingwood? Would you appeal it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He's got to do it tomorrow because they're playing Thursday night.
But you appeal it, but...
You're not going to win it.
Well, depends. No one's told us what the rules are.
Well, they make the rules up.
It's very hard to appeal them, isn't it? The basic
I think
case.
if they appeal, they wouldn't get off. But
No, I don't know what you're supposed to do.
yeah, just
So do we come out and just say, no tackling this weekend, you can't push someone... That was in the back.
No.
I know we've got to get to a break, but we haven't paid in the back for about 5 years. That's the unintended consequences of not playing in the back.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Let's take a
I wouldn't
break.
agree with Ed.
Yeah.
Paul Guerra gets his first interview as CEO of Melbourne, and we're fired up and ready to go right here on Footy Classified. Welcome back to Footy Classified. We've taken a deep breath as we welcome in Paul Guerra, who last night was appointed the Chief Executive Officer of the Melbourne Football Club. Welcome, Paul, to Footy Classified.
Thanks for having me, Ed.
And I can tell you, Paul is a very, very revered figure in the city of Melbourne in business circles and in sporting circles, has long time been on Racing Victoria board, but also has been in charge of VECI, the employment. What's exactly VECI for those who don't know about?
We sit between business and government and really look after business interests in the state.
So running for business and doing that, you also used to run the Royal Melbourne Show.
Did that for a while. Chaired the board of the Queen Victoria Market and had an extensive corporate career before that.
Very much so. And now welcome to the real circus, AFL football. Paul, a quick one just off the top.
Yep.
Your appointment last night was leaked to Caroline Wilson and was announced before you were told. Your first day, do you go in and find out who leaks at your club and shoot the rat?
Look, I think we put this in perspective. So it was held quiet for the whole period that I was going through the process. Got out about an hour early. It's not acceptable, and when we get inside the club, we'll work out what happened there. We're going to be about looking forward, and we're going to be about excellence.
The board you're joining, you know, has been in turmoil. You've had civil war between presidents, coaches, allegations, court cases, defamation cases, everything else in there. And the first thing that you walk into is somebody leaking from your board on your announcement.
Yeah, but put it in perspective, Ed. Steve Smith and Brad Green have done the right thing. They've addressed all that. It's time to put all that behind us and start to move forward. We're going to be about excellence. We'll be about high performance. The club absolutely is starting to look at where do we get our next premiership from. We want to be the best off-field, but we absolutely want to be the best on-field as well.
Paul, what's your first priority when you sit down at your desk on day one as Melbourne CEO?
Yeah, so the first thing is to get across all the people inside the footy club. And that's my style. I'll be talking to everybody inside the footy club. There's a bunch of people that have reached out, which is really nice, across the football industry, and I'll have time to do that before I start to do it. But it's you know, when I start, it's where do we want to be as a football club and how are we going to achieve that. So it's really getting clear around the strategy. The club's made that clear. We're going to refresh the strategy on that and then put in the right building blocks in place to make sure that Melbourne is going to be the destination club where players want to come to, coaches want to come to, and off-field staff want to be at as well. Of course, when I start, it's probably the advent of the AFLW season as well. So there'll be a focus on making sure that we put the right support around that.
Paul, congratulations. Disappointing you're leaving the red and black as a supporter, but congratulations on joining Melbourne. I'd suggest that the four pillars are important: the governance of the club, the product, which is the on-field, the game, the coaches, the facilities and the community engagement. Facilities, you got no home really at the moment, a single home, and then also the unrest at the football club with the players and the coach and Oliver and Petrarch potentially leaving. Which one's more of the focus, the facility being a home, or you want to get that on-field side of thing right?
I think you can't separate across those four areas. We're going to be really clear. If we're going to be high performance, they all need to be addressed. So if there's issues within the club, we'll deal with that, and that's been my background in terms of building the right culture off the back of the values. The club has a really strong value set. We need to live those values. That'll give the culture out there. And it's hard to really be high performance if you don't have a home to go to. So let's put a focus in terms of making sure that we get the right home, not just a home, the right home to go to.
And so for Melbourne supporters, in 5 years' time, where will that home be?
Don't know yet, James. So that's to be worked through. There's certainly a lot of conversation about Caulfield, and once I get inside I'll have that conversation. But what I do know is we will have a new home. It'll be high performance. The players will want to be there, coaching staff will want to be there, the sponsors will want to be there, the fans will want to be there, the members will want to be there. Importantly, the past players will want to come back and relive their contribution to the footy club as well.
So Paul, a reason why I would have hired you if I was running the show to come into the Melbourne Football Club is because you do know everybody, you're involved in racing, you understand your sport, you know the business. So straight away, there's already been people ringing me, texting me, going, is there a conflict of interest that you're on Racing Victoria, that you're going to have to negotiate with the Melbourne Racing Club, who they fund, Racing Victoria funds Melbourne Racing Club, who will be your tenant as the CEO of the Melbourne Football Club?
Yeah, so I hold a number of boards outside my current role at the moment. When I get in the football club, Melbourne Football Club will be my absolute priority. And what I do with the other boards and the like, we'll take care of that through the process. But no Melbourne supporters should be concerned. Melbourne will be my number one priority.
Okay, so since 1986, when Melbourne wanted to merge with North Melbourne because they were going to have the Melbourne Kangaroos that play at the MCG and train at Arden Street, Melbourne have been looking for a home once they got sort of kicked out of the MCG because of the ground and all that sort of stuff. My understanding is that with Mount Scopus coming into the play now at Melbourne Racing Club, and you wouldn't maybe even know any of this stuff at the moment, Paul, but it's been pushed back another year for Mount Scopus to get things organised. Now, my understanding is that there are other parcels of land at Caulfield to look at, but do you think you need to almost keep that one rolling? You've got Waverley that's coming up when Hawthorn get out, and you've even got Port Melbourne you were talking about today, Hurdy.
Yeah, there's an opportunity there maybe.
Down at Port Melbourne, you've got the Australia Post building
Post site there, yeah.
has been taken out, and they even wear red and blue.
It's in the same song.
Sing the same song. There you go. You can do the deal between yourselves. So, to Tom's point, this is now a moment in time. The oldest football club in Australia still doesn't have a home.
Yep, and it needs a home. So aside from the ideas that have been put forward here, there's been another bunch that have been thrown at me today by fans and people that I know around football as well. Once I get inside, I'll get an opportunity to work with the board in terms of where the Caulfield proposal is at. If it's the right proposal, we'll go forward with it. If it can be done, we'll go forward with it. If it's not, we'll find alternates, right? We're not going to rely just on one option here. We will find the right home for the Melbourne Football Club, and as I said, it'll be home that we're going to be really proud of.
There was an internal review of the football department done, I think, 12 months ago or last year. There's been suggestion there needs to be an external review. Is that something that you're in favour of?
I'm 24 hours in, James. Look, the corporate world operates a bit differently. So we do reviews on everything that we do. If I do a media conference, we review that. If we do an event, we review that. That's the type of attitude that I want to bring into the football club as well, because that's how you get high performance. So I don't think we should be worried about a review or what a review looks like. If a high performance club or company isn't reviewing it regularly, it can't be high performance, and that's what I want to bring into the football club.
Paul, your predecessor said that Melbourne was the best culture that he's seen in 40 years, and it blew up in his face. That what happened over the last couple of years at the Demons has clearly proven that Gary Pert, at the time, didn't particularly know what a good culture was. In your mind, what is a good culture, and what is it about Melbourne that gives you such confidence?
Yeah, so I'm really clear about this. Once you set your values, and the club has a values, which is under the true value system, once you set those values, you live the values. And there's two ways of living, the right way in which they're intended to, or the other way. You will get a culture out of those values. The job of a CEO and then of the executive and the whole organisation is to live the values in the right way, and that's how you get the right culture. And that's what I'll be bringing to the football club, because that's what I've done in my corporate life.
I can only imagine that during the interview process, the Melbourne board asked you where you would be in 5 years' time. So what are the KPIs you measure by, both on-field and off-field? Were you able to articulate here what they were?
Yeah, so I'm really clear around the footy club is going to be a destination club for both on-field talent and off-field talent as well. I want to make sure Melbourne's playing great footy so that the fans are coming. We're going to fill the MCG in the same way that Essendon and Collingwood have done over the years as well. We want the hallmark games, and we're lucky to have two of them, with, of course, the King's birthday and then the Anzac Day Eve one. Is there a chance for one more of those? Hopefully. I want to make sure the club is challenging regularly and that we're going as good as we can off-field for the men's. Then let's focus on the female program. We're one of two clubs that have won premierships in both AFL and AFLW in the past 5 years. And then I want to make sure off-field we are best in class. So across the board, right, whether it's on-field or off-field, we are going to be high performance and we are going to be excellence.
I know Simon Goodwin's got 18 months remaining on his contract. Have you spoken to him? And is one of your first ports of call to determine whether he is the long-term coach for the Demons?
I spoke to Simon at about 6:45 this morning, and he was already out at Casey Fields.
Yep.
So he texted me about 6:45 this morning on his way out there. So I had a good conversation with Simon. I think we need to be respectful of Simon Goodwin. Simon Goodwin won a premiership for this club as coach 5 years ago. He won 2 premierships as a player. My conversation with Simon was around what support do you need to make sure that we can win another 2, 3 or 4, 5 flags before you finish up at the Melbourne Football Club.
Thanks, Paul. I might just add in when I was talking about that Mount Scopus are very close and working with the Melbourne Football Club, so not against each other, but it's still been kicked down by another 12 months at least on the Caulfield deal. Hey, Paul, I get the feeling, mate, having known you for a long time, that all roads have led to the AFL at some stage. You're a passionate man as far as football's concerned. You've done a myriad of business deals and worked at various places and understand the fabric of Melbourne. You know everybody you need to know around town to get things done. We wish you all the best, mate, and
thank you.
Really good luck. And it's a very important part of our world, the Melbourne Football Club. It's, as I said, the oldest team in the competition, and we need them to be strong.
I appreciate your support along the journey, and of course your support, James and Tom, as well. It's an exciting time. I mean, AFL is the elite sport in this country, and Melbourne is one of the foundation clubs of the elite sport in this country as well. We've got a proud history, but our future is ours to build, and I'm looking forward to doing that.
Paul, stay and watch Coach's Corner with Sloaney and Hurdy, because the football department loves it when the CEO comes down with ideas on how to play. They really love it, mate. We'll come back after this. It's a Super Saturday this weekend in the AFL, and we're going to go through the big 3 games on Saturday right after this on Footy Classified. Now it's time for Coach's Corner.
25 minutes to make a name for yourself like you never made before.
Yes, thank you, Ed. Super Saturday, Collingwood versus Geelong, Rory. It's a fantastic game. We saw the Blues take on Geelong on Sunday, and did a fantastic job of keeping the ball off the Cats. The way they just kept the ball skinny and kept it down the boundary line. If Collingwood want to win this week, I think they need to do the same thing.
Well, they went in with a clear game plan, didn't they? And that was to lower their risk profile, not take the ball on as much through the middle, which we know Geelong guard really well, and take less risk, but still wanted to attack that last line. And when Geelong were just man on man, again, we see it here, attacking on the outside. We call this attacking skinny, which allowed them to outnumber on that skinny side, but then still attack Geelong on that last line when they could.
Yeah, and take the ball away from the Geelong spare. Geelong love having a player behind the ball. Carlton keeping the ball skinny, keeping the ball off them, soaked up the extra number and made sure the Geelong defenders had to defend. If you look here, you see Geelong player spare behind the ball. Carlton keeping hold of the ball, making sure that Geelong defenders defend. And again, we see Blitzards and Jeremy and Stewart defending here. We're going to bypass them and make the Geelong defenders defend and keep the ball out of their hands.
And it's not perfect, absolutely, but just to take that little bit extra ground and get it over the back and to go skinny, which allows more numbers to stay in the corridor. Again, that's what they wanted to do, was guard the corridor against Geelong and not get scored out coming back the other way.
The other great game is the Battle of the Bridge between GWS and the Sydney Swans. This game has real meaning to it. If you're up in Sydney when one of these games on, they really don't like each other, these two teams. GWS, though, have to get their game back. Round 0 against Collingwood, they were sensational in their pressure on the way. They kept the ball in the forward half and made Collingwood fight for everything. But the last few weeks, they just haven't been there, have they?
Well, the Giants are at their best. This is what you're seeing. You're seeing pressure on the ball. You're seeing that aggressive nature. They come in with a bit of that swagger that goes, stuff you, we're going to get in your face. We're going to put this kind of pressure on. That's a great hit. We just didn't see that against the Doggies last week. Doggies had too much time to be able to chip and mark and find their way out. But if Giants want to get this done against Sydney, we know Sydney aren't that good in this area, Hurdy.
And it allows them to play a forward half game, attack from the forward half, which is what the Giants love to do. It allows their defenders, their great defenders, to set up behind the ball and take those intercept marks. Brent Downer is a huge out for them. The weekend against the Western Bulldogs, they weren't able to do that. See the forwards here of GWS not filling up the ground, not allowing their players to get back and then press up. And it just seems so easy for the Bulldogs to get the ball out. Adam Kingsley has a big difference between last week and round 0 against the Pies.
Absolutely, and it's not much of a switch. Like, it's a mindset to get those players out of there. It's a mindset to get that pressure and get in the face of your opposition. And this is what we want to see here. We want to Collingwood, that round 0. You would have seen pressure on that. We'll pause here, Hurdy. Get up onto the mark.
And they're all heading back instead of pressing up.
Giants are heading back.
And that allows gaps in the field, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Another one. Get up on the mark. Force the Doggies player back so that he doesn't have time and space to hit Bailey Dale over the top here.
Yeah, when the defenders are heading back towards goal and folding back, it just always opens up space in the middle of the ground to kick your way through. If you really want to put the pressure on the ball carrier, you've got to come up at the player and take his line of sight away so he can't kick the way through.
Well, it makes it easy for your defenders as well, doesn't it?
Q-clash.
Q-clash is huge. There's genuine dislike between these two sides and these two individuals, and we'll show some footage in a second. But this is becoming one of my favourite clashes.
These two or the game?
Well, the game and these two. Favourite rivalries in the game. These two are unbelievable. But this rivalry, who would have thought Gold Coast versus Brisbane has become one of the best rivalries in the game? And it's on Sunday night, last game of the round. Can't wait for this, Hurdy.
Yeah, it is. And there's two teams playing genuine, fantastic football. I mean, the Suns have really lifted their level to a whole new level. I think they're the favourites against Brisbane. I think Brisbane is still a little bit off, not playing their best footy. And you can just imagine Zorko and Touk-Miller here going for it in the last game of the round, which, as we said, is my favourite game. Yes, Tom?
Hey, Hurdy, can I ask, does a coach bring up this hatred in the pre-game, whether it's Brisbane coach or Gold Coast coach?
I think Damien Hardwick will. I don't think Chris Fagan will need to. I think Damien will be a more emotional coach. This is the younger brother trying to beat up the premiership. I wouldn't be surprised if in the rooms this is brought up.
Well, he doesn't need to. Well, we've seen the way Gold Coast have been playing their footy, and Mac Andrew, it'll be interesting to see how wound up he is this weekend. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how this pans out. But I don't think he needs to wind them up. They're playing that style of footy already.
Eddie, it's rare that Collingwood-Geelong is not the match of the round. Great game as it is. This Q clash is the one I'm waiting for.
And it's going to be a beauty because the magic round of the NRL is up in Queensland all weekend. So the last game, though, will be between these two teams and hopefully a capacity crowd at the Gabba for one of the matches of the season.